Hello everyone, and welcome to the Speculative Wildlife Research Center. Today we are following on with our theme of cold and frost of the holiday season by taking a look at ice dragons. In fiction, especially modern gaming fiction, dragons come in a whole bunch of elemental variations, and we've already seen what fire-breathing dragons look like. So let's follow this up with ice elementals. If you like this idea, please consider liking and subscribing. And before we begin, if you're still looking for that special holiday gift, maybe consider getting Dumplings. This is a super fun game to play with family and friends, each turn changing the rules of the game as the history of this fictional environment goes on, with each player using trade cards to earn points and screw over the other players. So if you are looking for something fun to do during the holidays or an interesting gift, use this link to go check out their wares. And you can use code SPECULATIVE to get a 5% discount on checkout. And now, without further ado, let's get started. Predators of all forms and sizes prowl through every corner of the world, making any habitat a little more dangerous for everyone else, and the frozen regions of the north are no exception. While many predators roam these lands, one of the most interesting of them, and today's research subject, is the very appropriately named ice dragon, also known scientifically as Cryodraconis acanthoderma. These huge reptiles are varanids, like the Komodo dragon, which have conquered the northern lands of the Old World and are most usually found along the coastal regions, where humidity is greater. They are capable of surviving in these inhospitable environments, outright deadly to most reptiles, through a series of adaptations. The first and most obvious of these is their huge size. Ice dragons can reach up to 10 meters in length, similar to reptiles like the Zilla, and while not as stout as some other cold-dwelling animals, its robust frame is certainly helpful in heat retention. The second of these adaptations is the production of huge amounts of glucose in between its cells, an adaptation seen in other ectotherms living in cold regions, like certain frogs. This glucose will draw water out of the cells, meaning any freezing will happen in the extracellular spaces and will prevent the cells from being damaged, which is particularly useful during the coldest months of the year. Lastly, ice dragons can be identified by their large, wing-like structures, actually skin stretching between large bony scutes, which help them increase the available area for catching the warm sunlight. What's more, their coloration will often change in response to temperature and light conditions, as has been reported with other reptiles. When more sunlight hits their skin pigment will automatically redistribute, making their back darker in order to help them absorb more sunlight. In contrast, when the temperatures drop, their skin will become a more evenly distributed white and light blue, which helps them camouflage as they hunt. The name of ice dragons, however, does not come only from how well adapted they are to their environment. See, these reptiles have a fantastic weapon that separates them from most known organisms: a freezing chemical barrage. The production of this weapon begins with two different substances, which will be held separately in two glands inside the dragon's body. The first of these is diluted citric acid, which will be produced in these glands through an applied modification of the Krebs cycle. This cycle is responsible for using glucose to produce energy for the cells, but the dragon's slow movement and very static lifestyle will give them an excess of available glucose to use for this purpose, and then the citrate that participates in the Krebs cycle will be transformed into citric acid by these glands and held until needed. The second of these compounds is sodium bicarbonate, which is not actually produced by the dragon's body. It is, instead, taken from the environment, similar to what some creatures, like the Rathalos, are known to do. The ice dragons will chew soil, proposed to have originated as a form of zoopharmacognosy, and this soil has rich deposits of nacolite, a natural form of sodium bicarbonate, formed through ancient volcanic activity and stored inside the body. The dragon will then stalk its prey, camouflaging thanks to its coloration, and once it is close enough it will open its mouth wide and shoot the two compounds. When they make contact upon hitting a surface, usually the dragon's prey, they will react with one another, causing an endothermic reaction that absorbs energy from its surroundings, cooling down the air and available moisture. In such a cold climate, the struck animal will usually die from hypothermia in a matter of minutes. While vital in catching prey, the freezing breath of these dragons has another incredibly important function, aiding in the construction of their resting places and nesting sites. They will begin by digging using their huge claws and muscular arms, forming deep burrows within the hardened soil, and then systematically close off the entrance using their icy breath to freeze the humidity in the air, leaving only small holes that allow fresh air to enter their lair. Inside, the ice dragons will rest during winter, when the cold is at its worst, staying in a state of torpor that allows them to conserve energy as they wait. Within these nests, the isolation will keep out the cold wind and preserve what little heat it can, making this a much warmer and more attractive resting place than the outside would be. As an extra advantage, these enclosed spaces will attract the attention of smaller animals seeking shelter, thus giving the ice dragons an extra source of nourishment. Females will usually build these nests well before winter arrives, and they will lay around half a dozen eggs, where they will develop under the dragon's careful watch, hatching once spring is around and the tiny dragons are ready to venture out into the world. However, the cold is not the only danger dragons face in these regions. While ice dragons are formidable predators in their own right, the cold wastes of the north are the undisputable domain of large mammals, which are perfectly capable of taking on these sluggish reptiles if needed, meaning they need extra protection to resist predation. That's why the ice dragons are covered in pointy spikes, or scutes, bony plates covered in keratin. These scutes are already present soon after the ice dragons are born, but will keep growing as they age, eventually transforming into the impressive structure we are seeing today, making for a great deterrent. When this defense, however, is not enough, they will extend and move their lateral membranes in order to look bigger, even fanning them to blow cold air and snow at their opponent in order to dissuade them. They will do this in an attempt to save their freezing weapon for when it is most needed. But if even these intimidation tactics prove insufficient, then they will resort to their icy breath to make short work of any potential predators or competitors. And that's it for Speculative Biology look into ice dragons. While a very common creature in modern fiction, the concept of an ice dragon is pretty vague, and possible designs are almost as varied as dragons themselves, but usually tend to stick to the mold of the hexapodal European dragon. And I cornered this by giving them wings as skin projections from their sides, which has been a common suggestion for this type of feature. One thing I found interesting was the presence of spikes in most of these dragons, which makes sense because them resembling icicles reinforces the cold theme, and it was easy enough to adapt into protective scutes. Color-wise, however, things were not as clear, with ice dragons ranging from grey to white or blue, with shiny blue accents being rather common. Based on this, I decided a more discreet coloration would fit these predators better, and the need to both camouflage and catch sunlight for thermoregulation worked well for including these colors into the design. One last thing about these dragons is they are possibly the first dragon species seen outside of our world of dragons, but I think this could just as easily be translated to be a part of this world, as different organisms that adapted to fill the niche of dragons someplace the latter couldn't survive. So I hope you liked this episode. And let's close off with a look at some of our community's art. And, of course, here's a big thank you to everyone who wanted to see this episode. And also big thanks to our patrons and channel members for their support, as well as helping this dragon reach its final form. Remember, you too can join in if you want to support our channel, and you will get some nice bonuses too, like seeing all of our creatures and videos ahead of time and helping mold them into shape. Or you can also like, subscribe, or write a comment telling me any type of creature you would like me to give the Spec Evo treatment in the show. Any of those really help the channel a lot. Thank you all for watching, and see you next time on the Speculative Wildlife Research Center.